The Baltimore Ravens and Buffalo Bills are gearing up for a wild divisional round matchup, and we talk about some people backtracking on their Lamar Jackson comments, other people continuing their blind Baltimore Ravens hate, all that and more coming up on this edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day, free and available on all podcasting platforms, including in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe, and in audio form where you can follow along and subscribe as well. 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage here on Locked On Ravens. So tell a friend, tell a family member, and become a part of the amazing communities that we have already built here over on this show. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet. You're going to start it with $200 in bonus bets if you win or lose your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. With us today, back in the building, is former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, Super Bowl champion Qadry Ismail. And Q, I'm glad we're able to talk after a Ravens playoff victory. I know there were some people that weren't as confident in the Steelers game because it was a divisional matchup, that whole they know us and we know them mentality. But the Ravens took it to Pittsburgh from the first snap to the last snap, really was just utter domination. And now Baltimore has the honor of going up to Buffalo and facing off against that Buffalo Bills team that is just about as hungry as they are to kind of get rid of some of these playoff demons that they've had over recent seasons.
Well, after sitting in the commissioner's suite and watching the game from that vantage point and talking to Commissioner Goodell, and, we were just looking at all the little fine-tuned details, I will say this, that he was hoping for a closer matchup. I was excited that fourth quarter was all Ravens domination, and Lamar and Derrick Henry did what they did, put up the 28 points. And I was like, yeah, Commissioner, this is one where I am not going to be with you as far as trying to have a good, tight, close matchup. So great game, I thought, by the Ravens. Bully ball to just the nth degree. Made the phenomenal plays when called upon. Lamar Jackson did every single step of the way. And the defense, again, showing, that revived defensive look and that holding each other accountable kind of a mindset and mantra. So, yeah, I think the Ravens, it's time. It's time for them to travel up to Buffalo and Western New York and now see how you're going to fare. Obviously, the last time they were up there, it was COVID. And they had invited some fans into the game. I was attending that game myself with WJZ and Mark Viviano at the time, and it was intense, but loved every minute of it. And I think this is going to be another great contest.
Yeah, just a subtle flex there with the sitting in the commissioner's suite there, just a little flex, but hey, that's something that maybe. You got the word in, Ravens want to push them through, want to get them to the Super. No, but let's be honest. The Ravens, they love the competition. They love being able to beat the best. And this is a team that's hungry and they want to face every challenge that's in front of them. And I think it's really cool that they have that mindset of not just, we want to face an injured team that's limping. No, they want to face the team that they can say, yeah, we beat that team on the way. It reminds me, Q, of 2012, 2013. And honestly, you were part of that Super Bowl team in 2000, 2001, you had to face some tough teams to get to where you wanted to go. And it wasn't like you wanted to go and, this team's limping, we're just going to take advantage. Now, you wanted to beat the best, right? Isn't that the mentality?
I'll tell you what, Denver was a really hot team. They had really great receivers. Quarterback wasn't exactly top tier, but, Danny Cannell did his thing. When it came to their defense was strong and solid. They had, some playmakers over there on the other side of the football. They came into the vault, and actually, technically, it was PSI Net Stadium. So they came into PSI Net Stadium. I have the right there, that right there, PSI Net Stadium. That is the program Then we went and took our talents over to where did we go? We went to Tennessee, and all those guys, 3-6-9, they were Pro Bowlers all up and down their roster, and they were amazing. But we took care of them. And then, of course, when you're talking about taking it to the next level, I feel like a weather person looking at the green screen. But when we took it to the next level, this right here, out there with the Raiders. They were the Oakland Raiders at the time. And then obviously taking care of business down in Tampa. But yes, you even look at the 12 team. The 12 team, they had their challenges too that they had to face as far as going on the road and getting it done. You look at Andrew Luck at home. You look at Peyton Manning. Clearly, you got to go ahead and face the GOAT and Tom Brady. But ultimately, you get to the Super Bowl, you're going to be facing another guy, and they obviously face Colin Kaepernick. I just think that to validate, to be the best, you got to beat the best. And I think for what the Ravens historically have done, they've been more than up to the challenge. This is just another challenge. I like the way the Ravens handle their business and handle their focus. I think this I think this Bills matchup is going to be amazing.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think a lot of people are excited for it. You know, the top 2 MVP candidates going head to head for the second time. And obviously we know what happened the first time. We'll get to it a little later, Q, why shouldn't read too much into that first Buffalo-Baltimore matchup, but there are some trends to look out for. One of the things that was interesting to me, I don't know if you caught the comments, Q, but about a week or so ago, Emmanuel Ogbah, maybe it was a couple weeks ago, he called Josh Allen number 1 in terms of film and number 2 in terms of stats. It was Lamar number 1 in stats and number 2 on film. Well, Emmanuel Ogbah did a nice little breakdown on the Ravens offense. He was blown away by the Ravens scheme and how it almost seems unstoppable. And if you can't stop how the Ravens use some of their misdirections and whatnot, it's going to be impossible to stop Baltimore. And he quote tweeted his breakdown. And he said, everybody talks about the impact Derrick Henry has on Lamar Jackson's success, but the film shows LJ has had a wild impact on Henry's success, showing that on the film, you can see Lamar Jackson having an impact. He broke down a couple of plays, and I know, Q, you've done some breakdowns on these plays as well, where guys are following Lamar, right? Guys are going to the side Lamar is at, even when he's not involved in the play, even when there's a fake. You have to put bodies on Lamar because on that chance he has the football, it's going to be a bad time if you don't commit to at least having one guy there. And the Steelers, 3 guys will go to Lamar, 4 guys will go to Lamar. So kind of backtracking in a sense on what he had said earlier, but it's really interesting, Q, because yes, when Lamar goes out there, it's the gravity that he has that you always have to take into account for. And Josh Allen has gravity. Mahomes has gravity. There are a bunch of players throughout this league that have that gravity. Derrick Henry even has that gravity. But I just think it's on a different level with Lamar because of all the ways that he can beat you. And even if it's slowly but surely, I think more and more people are having their eyes open to that reality.
Well, I think the statement you just made, there are more ways that Lamar can beat you than anybody else. And so if I am a defensive coordinator and I'm looking at film and I'm looking at every game, I mean, literally, I'd be sitting there like, bruh, we know Derrick Henry runs the ball. Hey, if we can get him in the backfield, hooray. Hey, we know that Zay Flower does what he does, but you know what? If we can kind of bracket him, hooray. Oh, man, Mark Andrews, you know what? He's a tough opponent. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and bracket him. Zay, likely, well, if he gets going, it's going to be tough. But there are times where we could stop him. You look at number 8, and you're like, mother of pearl. All of them rely upon him. And he can go to any of them. And if he sees that they all are taken away, then he will take it upon himself to do what needs to be done. And when he does that, it makes life difficult for me. There are so many sleepless nights that many a defensive coordinator has had. And I know I keep saying Denver. Why? I don't know. Why? Because maybe I thought the Denver Broncos should have played better with Sean Payton and them. Ooh. They didn't play as well. So let me get that Freudian slip out of my brain and say that the Bills, I'm sure they're going to have many a sleepless night because what they see on film, yes, is the fact that Lamar is at another level. I was telling the commissioner in his suite that when he had literally dropped back to pass and extended the play a little bit, but then threw it out to Justice, and Justice was just magnificent. Number one, in picking up the first down, and then obviously there was another time where he picked up and scored a touchdown. The mindset that Lamar has now is that I don't have to do it. I can get it out to a check down guy and let him do it. And so when I see what defensive coordinators are now seeing, that's where I can see them trembling in fear, because Lamar wasn't going to the check down. Lamar wasn't seeing the whole field. Lamar's seeing the whole field now. And because Lamar's seeing the whole field and he has his legs, like, what are you going to do? It's truly pick your poison offense. No Zay Flowers, continue to pick your poison, because you got number 8 as the quarterback.
And I think it just continues to show his growth and his evolution over the course of his entire career. Exactly what you said there, Q, where I think that we've seen the growth and evolution of a player that understands so many different things about his game now. And every quarterback, every prospect comes out raw from college. Some guys are more NFL ready than others, but there's always room to grow. And with Lamar, the growth from his rookie season to his first full year as a starter, to winning that MVP, to some of the successes and failures he's had over the course of his career, it is all boiled up. It is all continued, and he's put it all in a pot, and he started up, and it's now all this moment. So it's been awesome to watch Lamar, especially because he just pops every single time you watch, whether it's highlights, film, tape. Lamar is the guy that always pops because of his dynamic ability, what he can do with his arm and his legs, and everything that he has done in terms of his growth. So I think it's really exciting to just see this all come to a head here in all of the years that we have said, oh, well, hey, maybe Lamar, he can make some better decisions with checkdowns, or, he can do this better or that better. He works so hard to improve his game, and we are seeing all of those rewards that he has put in the time, put in the effort. And now Lamar Jackson is this Lamar Jackson, the best Lamar Jackson we've ever seen. Someone who I know, in my opinion, is, hopefully soon to be 3-time MVP. But it goes so far beyond that for this team, because in my opinion, Q, the MVP conversation is just kind of like, okay, it's over. It's just, you don't have to talk about it anymore, because this team wants to win a Super Bowl, and that obviously starts with their matchup against the Buffalo Bills. And there was a lot of controversy about both the Ravens and the Bills coming into this game. So coming up, we're going to dive into a little bit about what Dan Orlovsky had to say about both teams, and talk about which team actually performed better in the wild card round, and if that's a good or a bad omen for the divisional. So be sure to stay tuned. A lot to get to on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by PrizePicks. It's playoff time, and if you're like me, you want to make the most of these final weeks of football action. That's where PrizePicks comes in. If you love football, want a chance to win real money while watching the games, PrizePicks is the place for you. It's the best way to turn your sports opinions into cash with daily fantasy player projections. The PrizePicks simply fit more or less on player stats like total passing yards or rushing touchdowns, which for a shot to 1,000 times your money. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds, whether you're looking for a flex play to boost your payout or want to cash out quickly. PrizePicks has got you covered. And with over 10 million members and billions in winnings, it's clear that people are loving this platform. I've been playing for a while now, and I'm having a blast. This week I'm eyeing Lamar Jackson for more than 230 passing yards and Derrick Henry for more than 1 touchdown. It's so easy to use, and I love how fast the payouts are. Seriously, I've gotten paid out in as little as 15 minutes when my picks hit. Plus, the weekly promos like Taco Tuesday discounts add even more value to my lineups. Here's a special offer for Locked On NFL listeners. Download the app and use code Locked On NFL to get $50 since in the app you play your first $5 lineup. That's PrizePicks. Run your game. Download the app today. Use code Locked On NFL to get $50 since in the app you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. We're back. Our second segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with Kadri Ismail, breaking everything down from a Ravens perspective. We talked a little bit about Emmanuel Ogbah, backtracking a tiny bit from his comments in the first part of the show from, Lamar's first in stats, second on film, and then just praising Lamar just a ton in the film category. But now, Q, let's talk about Dan Orlovsky. Someone who I think has gone extreme ride or die for Josh Allen. And look, I think Josh is an incredible player. I'm just taking nothing away from Josh. He's a great quarterback, and he and Lamar, to me, have been the best and second best quarterbacks in the league this season. I just think there's been a lot of toxic conversation around the award, and that's for, many multiple different reasons. But I think that it's what I want to do is appreciate both guys, but we can also be honest about who we think is the MVP and say that's Lamar Jackson. Now, Dan Orlovsky took this to a bit of a different level on Monday when he was asked about, it was him, Stephen A. Smith, and Shannon Sharpe. And Stephen A. was defending the Ravens, which, by the way, just a plot twist in itself based off of all the comments he has made. But Dan Orlovsky ended up saying, quote, "I was way more impressed with what the Bills did than what the Ravens did," obviously referring to the wild card round. "If they play this weekend against the Ravens like they did yesterday, Buffalo wins that game." Stephen A. Smith said, "Oh, Lord." He said, "Take it, Shannon." He said, "You do." And Shannon was like, "No, the Ravens will win that game." I think that the Bills played Denver really well. They had strategies that worked in that game. They ran the ball effectively in that game. Bo Nix couldn't get anything going in that game. I thought Buffalo did play well. But essentially discounting what Baltimore did against the Steelers in that dominating fashion, one, despite the fact that Pittsburgh was absolutely reeling coming into this game, I do think Pittsburgh was the better team. I think that it shows a lot on Baltimore's end that they were able to dominate Pittsburgh the way that they did. Because first of all, Baltimore put up 41 on that Denver defense. I think the Denver defense has a lot of great players. They had a great season, but I think that there were some numbers and stats that were misleading of that group, and I think that Baltimore and Buffalo exposed that. But to take away from what Baltimore did to prop up the Bills to the level that Dan Orlovsky did, and I don't have a problem with him saying Buffalo played well because they did. But I think personally that Baltimore did a better job against Pittsburgh than Buffalo did against Denver because of opponent, because of the divisional factor as well, the fact that these two teams know each other so well, and the fact that this never even felt like a game from the first snap. This was pure and utter domination. IQ would even say that the Ravens dominated Pittsburgh more than they dominated Houston, and that was domination in its own right.
Everything you're saying, it's interesting to me that Dan would take the Bills, they played against Denver in that same game. I'm like, you don't see Bo Nix as a rookie quarterback, and Lamar Jackson is not a rookie quarterback. Like, their receivers were dropping balls that Bo was throwing to them. I don't see this receiving core or this tight end group having choking down their leg like that. I just don't see that. I don't see Derrick Henry in all his finest splendor and glory, going from being the king to being the court jester and having just average runs. I thought that, Denver left a lot on the table and could have played way better. But, yeah, you just started seeing them not just perform. And I don't see that from Lamar Jackson. So that's one. Number two, I think, Josh Allen, as you pointed out, Denver's defense, yeah, they got 41 put up on them by Lamar Jackson. Lamar is going to be Lamar. I think at the same time, defensively for the Ravens, what we're seeing is a way more disciplined, way more stout group. Sure, you have your Brandon Stevens concerns, and that's going to, be the big elephant in the room, and how is he going to perform when matched one-on-one? It's not that Keon Coleman doesn't scare me. It's not that Amari Cooper can't, ball out and have a great game. It's not any of those things. It's just that I think collectively, they can do some things that will hide some of Brandon Stevens' issues. Now, as it was stated earlier in John Harbaugh's press conference early in the week, where he was like, man, the long-winded play. The long-winded play is the big boy one that you got to concern yourself with, because just as every team got to concern themselves with the long-winded play of Lamar Jackson, clearly he's the master of it. But Josh Allen, he doesn't take a backseat to anyone. That dude can make a long-winded play for sure. We saw it when it was a 4th and 1, and he's trying to find his dude. He finds his dude in the back of the end zone. What was it? A 6th round running back, I believe. Okay, well, you're in a position where you're going to have to be stout and deal with the long-winded play. But I don't know where the analysts are getting this whole thing of, if Denver and the Bills game were the Ravens and Bills, then the Ravens would lose. I'm like, man, bring that same energy to the Bills, or from the Bills to the Ravens game, and we talk about the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, and again, I have no problem with people saying the Bills played well against Denver. They did. They played really well against Denver. But essentially the problem I have is that Dan Orlovsky is saying, oh, well, if the Bills just play this weekend against the Ravens like they did against the Broncos, Buffalo wins the game. And I think you said it perfectly, Q. It's like Lamar Jackson, Bo Nix. Ravens defense, Denver defense. Ravens skill position players, Broncos skill position players. Even Ravens coaches versus Denver coaches. I think that Baltimore laps Denver in a lot of different categories. And look, the only thing that I will say, the only way that this is accurate is if Dan Orlovsky is talking about strategy. Because what I mean by that, time of possession. Remember, Q, Baltimore held the ball for 40 minutes against the Steelers. And the Bills, I'll pull up their time of possession stats quickly here. Bills Broncos, and I said this on yesterday's show. The Bills held the ball for, if I can find a way to actually pull this up in a reasonable amount of time, which I'm doing right now, 41 minutes. They dominated time of possession. These two teams held the ball for a combined 81 minutes. Their opponents held the ball for a combined 39. That is domination. So, Q, what's the best way to stop one of the best quarterbacks in the league, whether you're talking about Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen? It's keep them off the field. Don't let them get snaps. Don't let them get opportunities. So the only way that I can see Dan Orlovsky actually having a point here and him saying if they played this weekend against the Ravens like they did yesterday, Buffalo wins the game. If the Bills hold the ball for 41 minutes, then the Bills probably win the game because that means Lamar hasn't had a bunch of opportunities. The Bills are clock controlling and scoring. That's the only way I can see that. But if you're talking about, oh, well, the Bills were so impressive here and the Ravens will just do the same thing Denver does, or the Ravens defense will, not be able to stop the Bills like Denver's defense. That's different. But time of possession, Q, I think that is a big storyline.
Yeah, it is. I think the third down and even fourth down efficiency, the Bills were 2 of 2 and 8 of 15, but the Ravens were no slouch either. They were 11 of 15 on third down conversions. They converted all their fourth down conversions. So I get it. The Bills game was probably the last game that he watched and felt really like, oh, wow, prisoner of the moment. Probably didn't really look hard enough to recognize that, Russell Wilson is, I think, just resume-wise this year, clearly not talking career, but I think he had a better this year than Bo Nix did. Of course, we know he's a Super Bowl champion. Of course, we know Russell Wilson has played in so many different, pressure-packed moments and have delivered for the variety of teams that he's been on. We're not saying that. But we are saying that this year, Russell Wilson was balling out. I think that he was a little bit better of a quarterback, but you saw what the Ravens did to him. And the Ravens held the ball, did an extremely good job of keeping it away from the Pittsburgh Steelers as well. I think if you look at it, that was one of those things where it's like, oh, wow, this is the last game that I'm watching. Oh, man, the Bills, wow. He's already liking the Bills anyway. So it just makes it even more juicier for him to see all the shiny stuff that the Bills did rather than, man, Broncos, they weren't really that good. And if you look at if you're trying to compare the Ravens and the Bills, well, the Ravens against the Steelers, I mean, they know each other extremely well. They got some ballers on defense, and Ravens pretty much took control of the game right from jump and snatched the heart of that defense right out from underneath them. So here's one of the things that I will also say. Baltimore only had 3 penalties, 14 yards. And we both, racked our brains and trying to figure out why they're such a heavily penalized team and only 3 penalties. So I'm like, all right, bet. That's playing clean football. We'll see when we get to the AFC Championship game when Baltimore has to play Kansas City. That was what, but they will have a home game because Houston will do the mega upset, and we'll be sitting at the AFC Championship game at the vault, and you and I will be talking. Well, I will be back in the commissioner's suite. Maybe I'll say hello to you.
Man, Q already predicting the AFC Championship appearance. I love the confidence. I think Baltimore does have a decently good shot to win this game. So coming up, we will talk about why that is. We'll talk about some matchups. We'll talk about some personnel that both teams have and how each team matches up with one another. So be sure to stay tuned. Lots to get to here on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Gametime. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending concerts last year. The energy and excitement were unforgettable for all of them that I went to. And now Gametime has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I was looking for tickets. Obviously, the Ravens in Buffalo, they're going to play in Buffalo, so I was looking over there for Buffalo, Baltimore tickets using the Gametime app. With the Gametime Picks, I found amazing deals. You can even see the view from my seat before buying. Super deals were particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows a total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork into buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Get create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, spelled LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Kadri Ismail still talking with you here on this Taco Tuesday. Ravens and Bills face off 6:30 Eastern time on Sunday night. It's prime time. We know the Ravens love prime time. We know the Bills love playing at home. The Bills are undefeated at home this season, so something has to give. Ravens are 4-1 in prime time against that undefeated Bills home record. One team has to come out on top. We will see which one that is. And Q, I think when talking about how these two teams match up with one another, first of all, the way week 4 went, that's the way week 4 went. It was utter domination. Ravens ran all over the Bills. The Bills did not have 3 key defenders in that game, and that's something you have to acknowledge most definitely. The Ravens didn't have some guys either. Michael Pierce didn't play, and I think a couple other guys. But this is the playoffs. We're 4 months removed from that game essentially now at this point. And for both sides, this is a different Bills team. This is a different Ravens team. I know, Q, that you have faced teams that you played in, the regular season in the playoffs. How does that kind of go? Do you watch the film from that first game, and you just kind of throw it all out and say, these were tendencies, but now these tendencies are different, and we're just focusing on what is the now instead of the then?
Yeah, you'd be a fool not to look at the then. You will be a fool because there are things that you can see what is the now that they either got away from the then. You could see where maybe guys were playing a little bit faster in then compared to now because they're just late in the season and your body is beat down. So there might be a little tell or something that you can glean playbook-wise, coaches and scouts. You might see, what were their tendencies from that game into the latter part of the season that you can say, okay, cool. They played a lot of man, and then they switched it up and they went to zone, or they play a heavy amount of nickel, and their nickel defender, he's kind of like a quasi linebacker. Early in the year, they didn't really, seemingly use him a lot and didn't trust him. Or they could be like, in these formations, they like to overload one side of the field and isolate one-on-one on the backside. How can we, look at that and see what that looks like? Josh Allen, he has a tendency to look to those strong side guys and maybe try to take off to the weak side if, that will linebacker gets lazy. Those are all things that you're just going to be just pouring over. So absolutely, you're going to look at those games. Absolutely, you're going to look at even, last year's game. You might take a small peek at the Divisional Round playoff game in Buffalo in COVID year. Just a peek, like, what was it? It's a different defensive or offensive coordinator, but I wonder, and yeah, all of it. You leave no stone unturned. That's why Bill Belichick has as many Super Bowl rings, and he's the GOAT in that regard. That's why Tom Brady, was so amazing because they would pull out stuff from years back just because. Peyton Manning he got over the hump and won his first Super Bowl against Chicago because, he did his due diligence in beating the Patriots in the AFC Championship game and, going ahead and doing what needed to be done down in Miami. I think it's just the way it is. You got to prepare. You can't just assume, well, we played them earlier in the year. We're not going to look at that film. You just be a fool. I think you got to look at it and really examine, the full totality of what that team likes to do or not do.
Yeah, no stone unturned, I think, is a good way to put it. But matchup-wise, Q, I think the biggest conversation around Ravens-Bills is the Ravens offense versus the Bills defense. I think both offenses are great. The conversation is defensively. In the run game, we know how dominant Baltimore is. I mean, it's their calling card. They ran the ball 50 times against the Steelers. I think that tells you something. The Bills, they are the 19th best run defense in the league. They have guys, but I just don't know if they're physical enough to keep up with what the Ravens have. It's certainly possible they are. But again, like you said, you leave no stone unturned. That first matchup, despite missing those top three guys, nothing really inspired me in that matchup. And it's not like from that point on, Buffalo became a top 5 run defense. It really has been a pretty big issue for them. So how do you feel like Baltimore and Buffalo match up?
Yeah, no, I do. I think both defenses, as you said, they've kind of gone through their ups and downs. Obviously, the Ravens defense, when you look at it, the one stat that they put out that I saw in a press box from week, I think it was like 11 to 17 or 18, they're the number 1 ranked defense. They totally did an about face and showed their tenacity, their toughness. They've done it against top tier opponents. They've done it against their own division opponents that know them. They have done a remarkable job. And I just think, again, when you look at what the Ravens do, it's that hold yourself accountable. That's the game-changing mindset for me. The Ardarius Washington plays, the Kyle Hamilton, hey, you know what? Last year was not a one-year wonder. The fountain of youth when it comes to KVN, and Mr. Almost is turning into, hey, Mr. I'm going to get there and make a play in Odafe Owe. I think all these guys, the Brandon Stevens is the elephant in the room. That is just what it is. But I think even on the flip side of it, when you look at the Buffalo Bills, when you talk about their rank in run defense, it's about like, establishing your dominance. And I think that they're going to be coming out there. They're going to be amped to stop the run. They're going to be trying to push the pocket back and not allow that, the dominance to start. You just know it. But if you weather it and get through it, I think that, they're 19 for a reason. You are what your record says you are. I think there are going to be some big plays to be had. Whoever gets a chance to get that star quarterback off the field, that's the team I think is going to have the advantage.
Yeah, I think we talked so much in the Greg Roman era about time of possession and how big it seemed like it was all correlated to wins and losses in that Greg Roman era. Obviously, it's much different this time with Todd Monken and his offense, but this could be a game that truly does come down to time of possession and which quarterback gets less opportunities. So we'll see, but I think, again, going to be a really, really good game. Q, always appreciate you hopping on. Thank you as always. Please tell people where they can find you and what you're working on, because I know you are very busy right now.
Yeah, no, missiletraining.com. Missiletraining.com is where you can come and interact with me. Missiletraining.com is where human movement and sports performance meets, and giving you every advantage and opportunity to be your absolute best, whether you are 6 years old and just starting off and you are trying to find your way, or if you are all the way into your adulthood and you're like, man, I'm done. I just want to feel good. My body wants to feel great. I'm the person that you want to see. MissileTraining.com, sports teams, college athlete, pro athletes. I do it all. Give you an opportunity to be your absolute best. Of course, when it comes to the media, it's in full swing because of the Ravens' success. WJZ, we have our purple pregame, and we're going to have our purple pregame, purple postgame, all the breakdown and analysis that's going to be happening on Sunday. I am going to be in studio, and WJZ going to be checking it all out. Of course, after that game, because I'm forthtelling that it is going to be us going to the AFC Championship game. Well, Locked On Ravens with Kevin Allstriker, he and I right here, we breaking it down for you. So you know what happened and why and all the things with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson in the epic matchup of two MVP candidates.
You know the drill. Q is busy. He puts a lot into what he does, and he works hard. So be sure to support him. Links in the description down below. Q, you know I appreciate you. Thank you again for hopping on. And thank you to everybody who tuned in, watched, listened today to Locked On Ravens. On the way out, hit that like and subscribe button in video form and follow along and subscribe in audio form for 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage. Coming up tomorrow, you know the drill. It's more Ravens coverage over here on Locked On Ravens. So be sure to stay tuned. I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.